unexpected release in the NFL today. Jordan Poyer released from the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah. It's kind of weird because, they tried to fight to bring him back last year.
Yeah. Well, because of his value. But now you have a 32-year-old safety in Jordan Poyer who his career has been incredible. Think about Poyer in just where he started as a consensus All-American at Oregon State. He was one of the best safeties in all of college football, and he ends up being a 7th-round pick. He was the 218th pick in the draft. Poyer was.
Wow.
And he ends up going to Cleveland. He's an all-pro. He's an all-pro in Buffalo. Signs a big deal in Buffalo. And the young dude from Astoria, former Kawapa League.
There you go.
Offensive and defensive player of the year.
It's a great. Say it again. What league?
Kawapa.
God, it's a fun name.
Yeah, the Coastie schools.
Yeah.
But at 32, he had restructured his deal last offseason. He's going to be 33 heading into this year. And you look at the Buffalo Bills, they're one of the teams just like the Miami Dolphins where they were getting last year was their run.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in salary cap hell. So you have $5.7 million in cap space that they will create by releasing Jordan Poyer. Another guy who he may not have a ton of tread on the tires, but what he's got, you can work with. You've got Siran Neal, who they also released, clears up $3 million in cap space. And then you've got, they converted Rasul Douglas, $3.5 million of his deal into a bonus. So that clears up another $2.5 million. What Buffalo's trying to do is just weasel their way under the cap so they can sustain having their core together. And what that looks like, Lord knows, because Stephon Diggs, we know how disgruntled he was at the end of the 2022-23 season.
When he led the league in catches and targets.
And then this year we saw it rear its ugly head again, and things seem to calm down as they usually do with Stephon Diggs. But could Diggs be on the way out? And now you're starting to say, all right, what do we look like moving forward with Josh Allen in his prime, still playing at a ridiculously high level? How do we build a contender and keep a contender around him? The big problem with Buffalo is that they were aging on the defensive side of the football. And this is a move to where you see a lot of free agents that are going to be out there. A lot of guys are going to want to hitch their wagon to a contending quarterback. And Buffalo's pretty much hoping that they can become that one of those teams.
And right on cue, the Bills are releasing center Mitch Morse to save $8.5 million this season. They're going to move Connor McGovern to center. And then who they just re-signed, David Edwards, is in line to start at guard. And 30 seconds later, the Bills are releasing wide receiver and return specialist Deontay Hardy.
See, this is a team that's $24 million over the cap. Over the cap.
Uh-huh. Meanwhile, the Commanders have over $100 million.
This is what happens when you pay your young quarterback and the new deal kicks in. Josh Allen equates for $47 million of their salary cap. Stephon Diggs is $27 million of it. And then this is that aging defense. Von Miller is on the books for $23.7 million.
Whole lot of million.
23.7. But you look at the way the NFL is kind of built out, that is a great example of a roster and how money is divvied up in the NFL. Those three guys right there.
Quarterback, wide receiver, pass rusher.
They equate for just under $100 million of their cap. Josh Allen at 47. You've got Stephon Diggs at 27. And you have Von Miller at 23.7. That right there, those three guys are $100 million. Everybody else, you're picking up scraps. So when you have a guy who's in that tweener range and is getting a little long in the tooth, boom,
boom, gone.
He's the cap casualty because you're not going to be releasing guys like Deion Dawkins, who's one of the best left tackles. The interesting one for me is you got Tre'Davious White, who that dude was one of the best corners in the NFL. Back-to-back seasons, he gets injured. He's on their books for $16 million. Like, this is the issue with how much injury luck goes into being successful in sustained success in the National Football League. Injury luck plays a massive role, and you can't roll the dice.
No, you got to get it when you can get it.
When you have an aging roster, you cannot roll the dice.
No.
And that's where Buffalo's at right now, man. And this is going to be a really interesting year for Buffalo.
This is parity kicking in. This is what it looks like.
Absolutely. Buffalo and Miami are the two teams that are up against it. And then you look at teams like, how important is a guy like Brett Veach at Kansas City, their general manager? They're figuring out ways to get that wiggle room. Your general manager, look at the cap hell that the Chargers are in after Tom Telesco's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to make these tough decisions, and you have a window of like 3 years that you say, this is it. This is where we have to be in win now mode, because our books are going to be an absolute disaster after that 3-year window.
I mean, it's that's the way the CBA is built, is to encourage these splurges and these pushes, but it also keeps the ebb and flow. It's the churn of the NFL. That's why you see the rise and fall of teams, and that's what makes dynasties like the Patriots and Chiefs stand out. Eventually, they have to pay.
Yep, kick the can down the road as long as you can.
But, I mean, the Chargers, they spend a ton of money.
Yeah.
The Dolphins, they spend a ton of money. The Bills, they spend a ton of money. The unfortunate part of this is for the Bills, they've run up against it twice. Where in reality, they were, if not the best team, they were the second best team in football. If they go to the Super Bowl, they're winning the Super Bowls, in my opinion. And in both those cases, they just boop. And people are like, oh, it's, they spent all this money for nothing. No, they spent all this money for the push.
This is
and
where
the football gods just didn't smile their way.
This is where the ring culture, we define greatness based on rings.
Yeah. And that's not how it works.
It is not always the case. No. But we're so conditioned to it now. We can't go back. You can't go back from it.
It's the same thing we were talking about with college sports. There's an inherent selfishness in fans where if it's not everything, I don't want it.
I think, and I believe this, I hope that the way that college football is viewed, now that we have 12 and then eventually short order 14-team playoff,
that getting there is enough.
Making a playoff game matters again.
Yes.
Like, just getting to the playoff,
matters.
That is a successful season. And that should be viewed as a successful season, because it was the New Year's Six Bowls were the biggest deal.
Yeah.
Right? Back when it was the BCS and before that, if you made a Rose, Fiesta, Sugar, Peach,
where we're at now,
Orange Bowl
with 6,
that would have been just awesome to be in that conversation, because that meant you were in the Cotton Bowl as well. That means you're one of the 12 best teams in the country at that point. And we lost sight of it with the 14 playoff because everything kind of just got knocked down a peg. Well, now those bowl games, those are the most important games again. Yeah. And making those, it matters so much to the health of your program. And I think that those games are going to have that meaning again. And I'm excited for that in college football. And I hope that people do prop those games up again, and just making the playoff is the mark of a successful season for the high-end programs. And then you can go back to, I think what college football also needs to do is slot their bowls in. And we know that it's like, hey, the number 2 team from the Pac-12 goes and plays the number 2 team from the Big 12 in the Alamo Bowl. No, they need to make that apparent. Like, they need to make it clear-cut. Like, this is your line of benchmarks of success in bowl games, because I think it's lost when you have, 44 bowl games this past year. Mm-hmm. Nobody gives a rip.
No, there's just too many.
No, because everybody lumps in the, Popeye's Bahamas Bowl with the Alamo Bowl.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be held to the same standard, because they're not.
No, the Amco Transmission Bowl is not the same.
That's right.
I was trying to think of another one that has been there. That is
the Holiday Bowl.
Yeah, the Holiday Bowl.
How about the Holiday Bowl? We'll go with the Holiday Bowl. Used to be a great game.
Yeah.
Going to the Holiday Bowl was like, all right, yeah, we had a good season. We had a good little season.
And you had usually get a good little matchup there.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.